Today on Strange Suspicion, Pia and Bobby Raccoon take a look at one of old Granny's favorite cases in true crime, the Idaho 4. So many things just not making any dang dollars nor cents. So sit back, grab yourself some snacks and a drink, 'cause they just about ready, y'all. And remember, Granny loves you. Whoop whoop.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth! Order in the court!
So guys, in the tapestry of life, there exists a sacred bond that transcends all else. And it's a mother's love. It's a love that begins with the miracle of birth, and there's a symphony that plays in the background of life for a mother that is pain and joy, and it's like intertwined as your motherly love begins to flourish and welcomes your child through all situations, through the good, the bad, the trials, the tribulations, the happiness, the accomplishments, all the milestone, guys. You know what I'm talking about. It's a love that knows no bounds, no limits, and there's a beacon of hope and comfort in a child when they look into their parents' eyes. And a mother is someone who shared their own body with their child for 9 months, which is really, really a big deal. It is a very big connection. It's a connection that no other two beings will have with one another. It is the same in the animal kingdom as it is in us as humans, that there should be this unwavering, unconditional, almost natural instinct to protect your own child and to love them more than anybody else could. But there is a woman named Shanda vanderark, and she is from Michigan. She is absolutely the worst mother that I have ever heard of in my life. I mean, we've all seen movies where they depict women as like the most horrible mother that you could ever imagine.
Turning now to Michigan, where Shanda vanderark was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after being convicted of killing her 15-year-old son.
You testified yourself how highly intelligent you were. In fact, that's the only thing that you testified to that I think was actually true. You were quite proud of that, boasting how intelligent you were. Quite frankly, there's a mother's love that I've seen that is striking. And anybody who's a parent who's married, like most mothers, and not all, but most mothers have such a strong love for their children. And to see what you did to your own child, I don't know if there's a word in the English language to describe how to describe it. I only can come up with just horrific. You know, toward the end of these text messages, you and Paul are talking about not wanting him to win. He's not going to win. I didn't allow pictures to be shown in open court of Timothy as he was when he died, because I didn't want people to remember him like that. But of all the things you took away from him, one thing I didn't want you to take away from him was at least some shred of dignity. A beautiful child with a lot of life in his eyes. That's who your son was. And you took that from him. I'm choosing to remember him as a happy individual with life, not as an individual. And that's the picture I want people to remember of your son. You took that from him. You took it from him. For what reason, I don't know. Mr. Johnson's right. There is something broken in you. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't negate what you did here. So besides remembering him like that, I'm not going to let you hide in the darkness anymore. People know what you are now. They know what you did.
Police found Timothy Ferguson dead and severely malnourished inside the family's home. The few photos of the victim taken around his death were deemed too graphic to be shown to the public, but this photo here was shown today in court. A jury deliberated for a little more than an hour before finding his mother guilty on all charges. Today at sentencing, her two oldest children addressed the court.
Timothy was so smart. He could take anything apart with any tools, or none at all. He had trouble focusing, but when he did, he was just as smart as the rest of his class. He made people angry, yes, but then he would look at you with those big baby blue eyes and you could never stay mad at him. I knew him his whole life. I held him the day he was born, and I continued to try to hold his hand as long as he was by my side, until he wasn't. I want the woman who killed my little brother to face the highest punishment possible. I want her detained for the rest of her life so she can't hurt anyone else. And I want the world to know that Timothy was wanted, if not by her, then by me. He was loved by me.
I thought that things were different than when I was younger. I thought my mother had changed for the better. Not one day has been easier since then. I've had to leave my career behind. My wife has to watch helplessly as I struggle, day in and day out, wondering how none of us knew what was going on, wondering if I told Tim I loved him enough times for him to remember up until the very end. I have to wake up every day and pretend that I am who I was before Timothy died. I have to pretend to be Nolan so that my friends and coworkers and family won't worry about me more than they already do. I'm surrounded by people who love me and care about me, but not a single person besides my sisters who understand how hard it is. Timothy wasn't surrounded by people who loved him when he died. And if I had known that, nothing could have stopped me from rescuing him and holding him in my arms and telling him I love him, that his big brothers got him, just like I did the day he was born. But because of Shanda vanderark's actions, I instead got to cradle the bag of his ashes in my arms, just like I did the day he was born. In all my life, I only knew one thing that my little brother didn't like. He hated goodbyes. If he had to say goodbye to anyone, he would cry and he would hold you and he would say, "Don't go." But now I'm the one crying, but I never got to say goodbye. I will always love Timothy like I always have, and it kills me to think about him. But I know he loved even his abuser and killer up until the very end, because unlike me, that's all he was capable of, love. I, on the contrary, want to stand here and express the anger and hatred that I feel, but if I'm honest, all that's just a mask, a bandage I try to put over the hole in my heart that was reserved for Timothy, but is now just filled with pain and remorse for every hug, high five, and I loved you that I might have missed in the time that I had with my sweet baby brother. Now I turn to the justice system in hopes that in addition to serving the maximum penalty, that there will be no appeals or second chances. If I can't have my brother back, she shouldn't have her freedom back.
You know, it's interesting, the judge mentioned during his sentencing that he took note of the fact that Shanda vanderark never looked at either of those two kids as they were delivering their statement. So he made a note of that.
There's no intention to hurt or kill or to abuse this young man. My client will take the stand, you'll find out she's a highly intelligent person. She went to law school, she passed the bar examination. She was in the process of trying to become licensed as this matter began. She graduated cum laude in her high school, college setting. I think law school is the second person on the list. She was clerking for judges. She was working and studying, and she was this close to achieving lifelong goals. Then she gets a call from her ex-husband. "I'm putting Timothy out, the victim. You want him or he's going to protective services." She takes him in. She takes him in. She takes him in. "Send him to me."
It's like Shanda vanderark was not born with any kind of shame, I would say. And I do have a lot of education in psychology. I have both a bachelor's and a master's degree in psychology, and I can tell you that this is a narcissistic quality that she has. She's like a sociopath in a sense, and if not in a sense, in completeness, she's a sociopath because the sacred bond that she should have felt as a mother was shattered. She was like grotesque in the way that she treated her own child and the mockery of his his existence. I believe that this kid was special needs. He had a lot of gifts, including his intelligence. He was very intelligent, according to his sister, who spoke at his mother's sentencing about how smart he was, and he could use any kind of tool and put things together, and he was kind of like deceitful and devilish, and at the same time he had this cute little bright smile that just would prevent anybody from holding any kind of grudge against this kid. And all the while, this sweet little smile on this sweet little boy was just a mask. You know, a lot of children that are abused and neglected and treated wrongfully by their family, their friends, or people they trust, they hide behind a smile. And luckily, in the eyes of the law, Shanda Van Ark faced her sentence. And what she did was not only the actions of herself, but the actions of another one of her children, guys.
In front of him to see if he would respond. Is that yes?
Yes, sir.
I know it's difficult. Did he respond?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do when he tried to respond?
I had to, or as I was told, I pulled it away.
So we didn't get to eat the pizza roll?
No.
Do you recall while Timothy was in the tub, an exchange where your mother inquired about pouring hot sauce on his private parts?
I do, yes.
Did you do that?
No. That was beyond cruel, as everything else was.
So you put him in the tub around 2. Did your mom come home at 6?
Yes.
And when your mom gets home at 6, did you go to work at that point in time?
She drove me to work, yes.
And was Timothy still in the tub at that point in time?
Yes.
So you and your mom drove to Grand Haven to drop you off at work, and Timothy's just in the tub?
Yes, sir.
Was he even physically able to move around at that point in time?
No.
Do you recall getting a text message from your mother around 11:30 or so that night while you were at work?
Yes. Though I saw it later than that because I was busy.
So you received the text message, but you didn't actually read it until a little bit later than it was received?
Yes, sir.
And what did you understand from that text message from your mother about where Timothy had been up until the time you were at work at 11:30 at night?
Still in the tub.
So that's 9 hours plus from the time that you first put him in the tub at 2 o'clock?
Yes.
When he died, he was a shadow of his former self, a ghost. There was nothing left of him emotionally. When he drew his last breath, his frail body ravaged of malnutrition and hypothermia. He wasn't eating, guys. The things that she was doing to him were unimaginable. When the details started to come out about what she did, the courtroom was like in disbelief, sorrow, disgust. The judge didn't even want to show pictures of what happened to this kid because he wanted this kid to have some shred of dignity for Timothy Ferguson. A judge begging to show some dignity for this little boy who didn't deserve any of this. How could a mom, a biological mom, any mom in any sense of the word mom, entrusted with this precious gift of being able to give life into this world, betray her own flesh and blood in such a manner? He wasn't allowed to leave. He wasn't allowed to go anywhere. He was tortured 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when she wasn't even home. She got his other brother in on it. He's in prison too. Thank goodness. I don't think he's any kind of victim. I'm not gonna let him have a free pass. That kid did just as much as his mother did, and he deserves every second. I don't care. That's my opinion, and I'm gonna stand by that. So how dare Shanda vanderark do anything like this to Timothy? In December, in a crowded courtroom, the long-awaited sentence was given to this woman. She was convicted of murder, and it marked the beginning of the end for her. For the mom who lost her way, the poor, poor mom who didn't realize what she was doing, in her own words. seems like she knew what she was doing. The details of this crime is disgusting. She intentionally and systematically and routinely abused and tortured Timothy. This woman is disgusting. She made him eat bread with hot sauce on it, and that's it. She made him defecate and urinate on himself. Made him put his hands above his head for hours. Made statements to her older son, older than him anyway, that he's not gonna win this time. He can't have his way. Don't let him have his way. Don't let him sneak food. This kid just wanted to eat some food? What kind of mother does something like that? The echo of Timothy's tragic story is gonna go through the news year after year, sentence after sentence, and she'll be made into an example. You better count on that. But to people that knew Timothy, to his siblings, to his other family, to the people he went to school with, his teachers, his fellow students, his friends, even though justice's been served, the wounds inflicted upon him and his soul will never heal. It's a reminder of the enduring power of a mother's love, an unfathomable pain of its absence, There's an unfathomable, the unfathomable, the unimaginable pain of the absence of a mother's love. Something that a lot of us never have to understand. And when you lose your mother, you shouldn't lose her in that way. You should never lose your mother because she lost her mind and she decided to be abusive to you and end your life tragically, slowly, and torturously. Let's discuss this woman. Go on and come up on panel. We'll put the link in the chat. Let's discuss this. Let's let our voices be heard. Don't be afraid. Okay guys, you guys have been asking for this content, so we're gonna go ahead and start this discussion out on the Delphi case. On February 13th, 2017, Abigail Williams and Liberty German were in Delphi, Indiana, which is a very, very small town in Indiana, and they were hiking on the Delphi Historic Trails. This wasn't a new thing to them. They were familiar with these trails, and there was no issue as far as their parents allowing them to do such a thing at their age by themselves.
Teens Libby taking this grainy video the day of their disappearance, showing a man walking toward the girls. Authorities have said he may be the killer. Libby also captured this chilling recording, thought to be the man's voice.
So one day they were walking on the Delphi Historic Trails and never came home. This was not only a concern for their families, but also for the local community. This was very out of sorts. These girls had come and gone from those trails many, many times before, and it was actually one of their favorite things that they did together. And as the investigation unfolded, there was whispers throughout the community of a connection between these girls being missing and human trafficking. And those rumors began to surface, raising haunting shadow over the case that shocked the nation and the world. So the story of their hike begins with innocence and adventure. Two young girls eager to explore the world around them, and they even thought that they were meeting up with some really cute boy. And with the promise of a beautiful day ahead, they set out on the trails, and they were excited, they were laughing, they were joking around, and they were, making their way through the woods. And it started to be like a really carefree adventure, and then it turned into a nightmare. Nobody's really sure what actually happened at this point. The only people that would really know are Abby and Libby. And unfortunately, they didn't live to tell their story. So as the news of their disappearance spread, there was a certain fear starting to build in Delphi, and they started to realize that these girls were lured into the woods by a fake social media profile. This fake social media profile was a very, very attractive young man who they thought perhaps they were meeting up with in the woods. As girls don't think very clearly at the age these girls were, they decided to go ahead and seek out this guy in the woods, which is terrifying when we think about it, but a very, very innocent and naive thing for somebody of that age to do without thinking it out very much. And unfortunately, when they found these girls, they were found in such a way that it seemed like a ritualistic type, cultish, like Odinistic type ritual. I'm not sure if there's truth to that, or if there's more of like an obsessive need for people to try to understand something about this case and try to draw a connection. Because if you're found out in the woods, after a while, I'm sure that your environment changes around you and things are disturbed and things fall down and things blow around, and you never know how you're going to find somebody. Perhaps there is a connection and perhaps there isn't. We don't really know for sure because we're not Abby and we're not Libby. But in the wake of this discovery of the girls, the FBI joined this investigation and a task force was formed for the investigation of the disappearance of Abby and Libby. Despite their efforts, the identity of the killer just remained a mystery, leaving the community and the families of the victims just like panicked and like in a state of disbelief and a state of like anguish. And in the investigation of the Delphi murders, there was a darker truth to begin to emerge. Like, it was starting to be exposed that could the disappearance of these two girls be linked to the sinister world of human trafficking? The mere suggestion has got this community on fire. They are terrified for their children. And as pieces fell into place, signs pointing to human trafficking began to surface. And a remote location of the crime scene, the nature of the abduction, how they were lured by a fake social media profile, by somebody who wanted to have some like secret relationship with them. There was a clear motive, and it all pointed to a larger, most sinister plot that nobody could have premeditated. But as law enforcement struggled to connect the dots, the specter of human trafficking loomed larger than ever. The faces of the missing children from across the country emerged. Stories started to relate to these two girls, and a heartbreaking reminder of the toll of human trafficking in this country puts a strain on the pressure received by the FBI and the law enforcement, and even the local community in Delphi, Indiana.
Over 100 people out searching the area last night, walking both sides of the creek bank.
In Carroll County, police are set to regroup and restart the search for two missing girls.
Keep together, okay? That way we cover more property, quicker time.
21, copter 5.
We have found two bodies. We are investigating this as a crime scene. We suspect foul play.
State police and the FBI have been on the scene now for several hours. A number of units and teams have been here trying to gather information.
Bodies have been positively identified as Abigail J. Williams, 13, of the Delphi area, and Liberty Rose Lynn German, 14, of the Delphi area. This is considered a double homicide investigation.
The two girls discovered in the woods, authorities asking for your help tonight. Their last Snapchat and the image of a man authorities would like to talk to.
And they now have enough evidence to call him the prime suspect.
We do have some new information for you today. Liberty had the presence of mind to turn on her video camera, but there's enough there that somebody could recognize this person's voice.
Not yet. Not yet.
And if you're watching, we'll find you.
There have been more than 11,000 tips
come in to our command center.
If somebody knows something, somebody has to know this person, recognize that voice.
It's not easy, and a lot of people are putting a lot of work into this, and we're hoping that the tip's there, and we're going to find it.
Their local law enforcement is terrified and understaffed and not able to handle something of this magnitude on their own. And it shows. Despite the darkness that surrounds the case, there remains hope for justice. Law enforcement has made an effort to incriminate a man named Richard Allen, who admitted to being on the bridge at the time, around the time that the girls went missing. But it's to my understanding that he offered that information to law enforcement. It's nothing they discovered through an investigation. It was something that he voluntarily, to my understanding, if I'm remembering correctly, according to my research, allegedly, he gave that information. That's nothing that they discovered. But human trafficking is a problem in the United States. Human trafficking is something that is very deliberate, something that is very, very intimidating, and something that is very dangerous. It's important that we remember to tell young people about their safety and tell people that it's inappropriate to talk to people who are older than you, and why it's inappropriate and why it's dangerous. The Delphi case should be a stirring and stern reminder to those who have children, to instill in them the moral value and the safety that they need to practice when speaking to strangers online. The Delphi murders have an insidious nature within the darkness of the mystery of this crime. It's devastating. It takes a toll on every parent in the country and every person afraid for their safety. There has been so much human trafficking in the United States that the signs are everywhere. They shouldn't be ignored, and these people shouldn't get away. Whoever's responsible for the horrible crimes against Abby and Libby need to be punished. Richard Allen or whoever else would be responsible. Whether he's innocent or whether he's guilty, these girls lost their lives from somebody, and the appropriate person needs to be punished. Do you feel that Richard Allen is the appropriate person to be punished for this crime? I'd love to open up the panel to see what you guys think, because together we can build a world where every child is safe, at least the ones that we look out for as a community. Every family as a whole and every community owes it to themselves and their neighbors and their friends to watch out for children being victimized. Tell me your thoughts. Let's talk together. I don't want to talk at you. Let's talk together. Be brave. Go up on panel. We'll put the link right in the chat. If you want to come up, come on up. So let's jump right into Idaho 4 guys and the crimes committed against Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Goncalves, and Maddie Mogan. The tragic events that occurred that caused their demise, and the suspected murderer, which is Brian Kohberger. Brian Kohberger has been in jail for over a year, and he is represented by his lawyer, Ann Taylor. On Friday, there was a development in the case, and basically the development in the case involved Taylor arguing that there was a notion that this order that passed was issued without prior discussion or like a scheduled hearing. So it was a violation of Brian Kohberger's rights under the 14th Amendment. And by curtailing the defense's ability to gather information from potential jurors, Taylor argued the fact that Kohberger's right to due process was unduly compromised. And she's right, guys. He has every right to be informed about things that are going to happen against him in a case, and They, vice versa, everybody should be informed on both sides. The prosecution should be given access to all the information and evidence that the defense is given, and the defense is to give all their information, facts, and evidence also to the prosecution for due process and for a fair trial. So, Judge reiterated that to both parties that engaging with any potential jurors until further notice was prohibited, signaling that the gravity of the situation called for such an order. However, he also assured that a hearing would be promptly given to address this matter, to resolve it, underscoring the importance of procedural fairness and transparency in the legal process, as if he had to be bribed to do such a thing or coerced into doing the right thing, which I feel is an injustice in and of itself. And Taylor conceded that some questions that she had posed regarding the media influence have been factually inaccurate.